do the regular record. At least I have that. I can't find the button that says, today. Normally it says today, and I can then just start. It's like, what happened to that button now? Huh. All right, never mind. I'll find it. Yeah. Okay, there it is, I suppose. Okay. Why they would change the tabs and call it today, now it's calendar. I suppose it's the same thing in the end, I suppose. All right, there's Graham. All right, go ahead, Beena. Go ahead.
Okay, hello, Syl, hello everyone, and hello Graham.
Hello, Beena.
Hopefully Norma will be there, so I'm saying hello directly to Norma.
Yes.
Hello Norma, you will be there hopefully, and whoever is going to watch this recorded also.
Yeah.
But again, just before coming here, we were busy in reading something, and we were busy reading Musashi. That was my actually request to that I want to read this one, and we are getting so much value out of it. Of course, as always, it is not dependent on, not entirely dependent on the book itself or the content itself, but
Right. So to be clear, we say Musashi, Beena, just to make it clear, it's a book called A Book or The Book of Five Rings, Book of Five Rings, and it's by Miyamoto Musashi. And this is it's a very classic book in literature, and it's especially in the business world. It's like The Art of War by Sun Tzu. These two, the Book of Five Rings, Art of War, have become books that have been used or are used in business for business strategy, right? So even though Musashi is talking about literal sword fighting, there's many abstract understandings of strategy and thinking and awareness and all sorts of stuff. So of course, when taken through the lens of way of impeccability and the language of conceptuality, which is another way of describing way of impeccability, another name for it, right? Way of impeccability, language of conceptuality, same thing. When we utilize this language and read Musashi through this, we get tons out of it, right? It's the power of this language. It's not just for Musashi, but anything. All right, sorry, Beena, that was a long interruption into what you're saying there, but I just wanted to put it into context because we know what you mean by Musashi, but others may not. Right?
anyway, so I'm just saying that okay, capital R reading is always like that. That it is not dependent on the content itself. It is dependent on the intent that okay, and the context, and also that our intent, the intent of the writer, and the intent of the reader. As in this case, we are the readers. So this is how we extract value. Of course, there's so much more also involved into this because it's not a simple thing. When we do capital R reading, it's fun, but it's very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated, you can say that compilation of some ways of extracting value. And as it be. But as Syl was mentioning about Musashi's the Book of Five Rings or a Book of Five Rings, or just Book of Five Rings, and the Art of War. And then he mentioned that okay, in today's world, is still in business, especially in business strategy, it is famous, and people still use that because as human, at least this is something I'm listening and I'm hearing from my elders since childhood that for competition. This term was really interesting for me. That okay, why this is cutthroat competition? This cutthroat competition. I guess that this term now I feel that it is coming from the roots.
Say the term again. I didn't hear it clearly.
It is cutthroat competition. Cutthroat.
Oh, cutthroat competition. Gotcha.
And I think that okay, this is coming from this type of things. Like okay, you have to be always on, and that whenever you get this opportunity, it's like okay, always like a war and all this. I was okay. This is super interesting, of course. As someone who is coming from the business men or business background, I can understand that because I have seen and I have experienced that with my own father. He was not like that, and this is how he he has to bear a lot of consequences. And because whoever is getting the opportunity, people who were supposed to be friends, but they were just business people, and they did whatever was appropriate for them. I was
Yeah,
just thinking about like, okay, how it is connected to way of impeccability, because at least what I have learned from way of impeccability and moreness till now, that it is it can be applied into anything in life. Of course, in business, of course, in your spirituality, of
yeah,
course, in your daily life, of course, in your education, in your relationship, and everything. But when it comes to this type of mindset, so I think personally, as a person who is learning way of impeccability, that we can still be aware of what other people are capable of.
yeah,
Not necessarily that their intent would be like this. No, not necessarily, but they are capable of. Just this understanding that other people with whom you are interacting, what they are capable of, is the most self-defense strategy you can have. Because once you are
yeah,
aware, you are going to be prepared for it. And this is the key of way of impeccability for me. That that pre that preemptive strategy, not focusing on, not thinking anything bad or negative about anyone, but just being
exactly.
prepared to be appropriate, being prepared
There
so you
you
can
go.
in any
Repeat that,
situation.
please.
Be
Repeat
prepared
that.
so you can be appropriate in any situation. That is something
Yes,
very
very
key.
key. Very key.
Sounds very horrible for me, like that cutthroat in
Uh,
competition out. Everybody used to say that, and I still hear that
uh,
oh, it's a very selfish business, and of course, no, not the selfish, but they say that okay, it's a cutthroat competition in this world now, in the market, in the business. You
uh,
make one mistake and you are going to just if you just lose something and you will lose and you will going to die and all this, and it is happening. And as a spirit warrior or as a just a learner from a way of impeccability, how this whole thing
yeah,
is situation fits into my world. I think this is where the idea of way of impeccability to be preemptive, so I can be appropriate in any situation.
exactly.
The
Exactly.
best.
And also to understand and know your situation. You use the term know your audience. Of course, in Musashi's language or Sun Tzu, know your enemy. Sun
Yes.
Tzu goes further, right? This is the magic of Sun Tzu. We haven't read Sun Tzu as a capital R reading yet, but we're going to. Sun Tzu says, know yourself thoroughly and you will know your enemy. Very
Wow.
powerful point. Right? Yes, very sophisticated point. Right. So, but in Beena, you like to use this term, know your audience, right? Uh, but also, if you take that one step further, know your circumstance, right? Know the environment, the situation, which would include knowing whether it is audience or whether it is enemy. Yes?
Yes.
Know your situation, know your circumstance, right? Very powerful. So way of impeccability is a toolbox that prepares you to know this, right? Especially if you get into moreness, you really learn the details about your audience, how they work, how they think, how they understand, and whether and like in the superiority paradigm, you're aware that you might not think of people as enemy, but people are deeply into the superiority paradigm and competition. They think of you as enemy. Yes.
Yes.
So you need to know how to deal with that. In capital H hearing, you're getting into a whole different way where you are now dealing with people who are more from a client point of view, even if they aren't necessarily clients because you're hearing. So, different mindsets, different situations, how to be appropriate. And then, of course, nobility is where you in the smallness paradigm and now you're interacting, right? So you've got different scenarios, three core main ones, right? That we have, right? It's very powerful, but it enables you to be appropriate in any circumstance, right? When you understand paradigms, you can shift accordingly. So I want to make a point on this. Sorry, Beena, I'm going a bit long here. So finish what you're saying, and then I'll come back to my point that I want to make.
Okay, no, I was just saying this, and then after that, when, as you mentioned, knowing your audience, I took it because when someone shared with me, I took it like, okay, on an abstract level. Whenever you are communicating, okay, and communication is every expression. It can be for a warrior, how they
Yeah.
fight, how they protect, and how they attack is a way of communication with others. This is how they communicate.
Yes.
Artists
Yeah.
communicate by their art, and of course, a writer communicate via his or her words. So, audience can be anyone, anyone who is other than you can be your audience, and of course, yourself
Mm.
also. Knowing your audience is something because the question was which was asked to me was like, okay, if a 5-year-old uh, child is in front of you and they ask you something about like, okay, a very simple thing, how, or like just about you, how you are going to tell who you are to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm this, and then say, no, just remember that this is just a 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
I can explain
Appropriateness.
myself. Yes, I can explain myself like, okay, in many different ways. But that the question was coming back to me again. Remember that your audience is just a 5-year-old child. And that was that like really hit me hard because I was very abstract, and still I am, in my sharing, in my way of communicating. And
Yeah.
so you say that, okay, oh, Beena, you just made an intuitive jump again. Because in my mind, what I was sharing was all in the context, but not necessarily, of course, for the other people. And when I made any intuitive jump, when I make any intuitive jump in my conversation, of course they were like, okay, from where this thing came in? Okay, oh, okay,
Yeah.
what she's talking about? But this is, I'm learning, of course, I'm learning to make the context clear and also
Yeah.
that relate with other people. I know that I very can't be very easy and comfortable for everyone. This is
Yeah.
something I need to accept, and of course, other needs to accept also, and they are doing that. But also, I need to accept because this is something I can't. When you are learning something, you get immersed into that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a
Yeah.
consequence of that. I can't be, and I always say that, okay, like way of impeccability is not everyone's cup of tea. No, it is not.
Yes.
Can be,
So,
it can be, but not innately. It is not because not
yes.
everyone
Yes.
is interested
It
in
it
these types.
it is it will be useful to everyone, but not necessarily of interest to everyone.
Yes, yes, it can
You
be,
would
but not.
assume if it's
Yes,
useful, it would be interesting, but that's not the reality.
that's not the reality. And same with people who are in the process of like going into way of impeccability towards way of impeccability. Their vocabulary change big
Yeah.
time. The thought process change. Their likes and dislikes change. Their way of thinking, their thought pattern change a lot, and then their ideas and perception about uh, good and bad, right and wrong, and other things, and and the appropriateness makes you a completely different person. So of course, not
Yeah.
everyone will be comfortable with that. Yeah, I'm aware of it now. But coming back to this thing again, knowing your audience in an abstract way. When Musashi is writing, he is addressing, in my words, audience, in his words, enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
has a very
And in
particular,
way of impeccability words,
yes,
situation or circumstance.
exactly. But Musashi, as I'm reading more and more of it, this book, I'm feeling that okay, he was completely immersed into just two things, like fight, because it's not war. It's a fight between two person. It's a very personal fight he has. So it's just a
Yeah,
fight.
it's dueling. Talking about dueling. Yeah.
Yes, and also that the sword thing. because he was so immersed and so influenced by the culture and in his personal culture, of course, and the culture, society, and other culture. He was very much influenced by that, which was
Mm.
appropriate because in his culture, as far as I know, as long as I'm reading it, the whole society was like just monoculture kind of a thing at that time.
Yeah, yeah. Very
Was just
rigid, yeah, narrow.
yes, rigid. So yes, it's like there that yes, he was influenced by that and he was addressing these issues. But again, as Syl always say that you can take anything and you can take everything and you can still get the value. And this is what we are
Yeah,
getting from it.
yeah.
So that is so wonderful about capital R reading. It happens with the Alchemist, which was very magical in the beginning for me, and I still say that okay, at that time it was absolutely appropriate. Uh, Syl then shared his perspective on that, and that make a lot of sense to me now. But again, like when we enjoy our nursery rhymes, we used to like the most the biggest accomplishment was that to memorize all those rhymes. Oh yes, I
Mm.
can do this. I can do this, and we feel so like really top on the top of the world. But now it's like, yes, it was sweet and fun and cute, but not so much valuable. So it is same with like the Alchemist also. Um, we read, that was the first thing. Like, oh yes, okay, yes, he's talking about these things, dreams and all those. And then now like duh, okay, so what? So it is like that now. When you taste the finest cuisine, then you start questioning about what you have been eating. Not questioning in a negative way, but of course your taste buds get refined, and it happens with your mind also. Your taste buds of your taste, in a very literal way, and also in an intellectual and in spiritual and psychological and philosophical way also. So your philosophical taste buds get more refined as you go through. Your psychological taste buds get refined and as you go through way of impact. And this is what is happening. So it's not that I'm against of anything or I'm thinking negative or below of like, okay, oh yes, like I'm thinking of Alchemist as below, like, okay, no, no, it was appropriate at that time, at that stage of my life. Yes, not anymore.
Oh,
So
very cool,
Musashi
Beena.
Musashi
Yeah,
could be very wonderful for me, maybe 2 3 years ago. Yes,
wonderful, 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 wonderful.
it's good to read that.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool, Beena. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Very cool indeed.
So you are going to continue with?
We are, we are, we are. One moment, one moment. This whole point, understanding appropriateness. It is the philosophy of appropriateness, the A plus philosophy. It's what everything is based on. The core understanding is understanding appropriateness. From appropriateness, you follow everything. Impeccability flows from it, awareness flows from it, discernment flows from it, attunement, everything. Because the more you extend your ability to be appropriate and extend the context in which you're being appropriate, the more you extend your awareness, your discernment, your understanding, everything, right? And impeccability is the best use of energy, which is, well, you have energy and you're going to use it and you've got to deal with that, right? So it's like a starting point, right? So it's the appropriateness. How am I going to deal with my energy to best effect? Yes. Yeah, makes sense.
Yes.
Also, also that when one of the key points, key concepts, right? Why Way of Impeccability is called the language uh of of conceptuality. Because when you understand conceptuality, and you start to have in your dictionary of power, as we call it in Way of Impeccability, right? You have concepts like intent. If you wish to be appropriate in any circumstance or situation, in any paradigm, one of the ways that will greatly assist you in doing this is to be paying attention to intent. Yes. Now, when you don't know what's going on, right? Let's say you just you drop out of the sky and you're in a new situation, right? And you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what world, what situation. Is it superiority paradigm? Is it nobility paradigm? Is it, whatever, right? Maybe some other paradigm, right? Sharing paradigm, whatever. But you can look at the intent and you can see the intent. When you practice this, it's a skill that we have. It's a skill that's a genetic skill because that's how we stayed alive, right? To see the intent of things. Does this thing want to eat me, or is it just being defensive and protecting its young? See, difference, right? So you learn this, right? You learn to see, and in personal interactions in the hierarchy, are they just looking to threaten and posture, or are they really serious? If push comes to shove, will they really fight, or are they just pretending? See, it's very, very, very powerful stuff to know. Yeah. So when we start to perceive intent, this is very useful. But of course, if you in a situation where the intent is competition, violence, dominance, bullying, well, then your appropriateness is, you have to take that into consideration. Now, of course, you can win a game by not playing the game, right? By not being concerned with winning, in other words. So there are sophisticated strategies for dealing with stuff outside of the way in which it's dealing, right? So I don't have to go and, win a fight by actually fighting, right? It's called, I call it, for me, it's the art of fighting without fighting. It's very powerful stuff. But the point I'm getting at is that when you're aware that different situations have different paradigms. When somebody's coming to me from a point of view of looking for assistance with living, they've got some crisis, some psychological issue, emotional issue. That's a very different paradigm of interaction and behavior than when somebody is coming at me and they see me as competition to them. Yeah. And they're looking to challenge me or whatever. They see me as a threat to their self-importance because, whatever I represent makes them feel in a particular way. A very different way of dealing with things, right? And then somebody who just wants to share, has no agenda. Again, very different way of relating to it. So we do need to be aware of the paradigm from which somebody is operating. And the way to do that is to be paying attention to intent. Yes. So intent is an incredibly powerful conception that we need to understand. And not intention, but intent. A very big difference, right? I'm not being pedantic or fiddly or just, uh, uh, being a bit anal about this difference between intention and intent. The difference can change your entire life and can save your life too, right? So to understand the difference between intention and intent, very big difference. Yes. Uh, because a lot of people have intentions, but not the intent. I might have the intention, like somebody may have an intention to harm me, but it's not an intent, so they don't follow through on it. Yeah. But if it's an intent, then they are going to be following through on it. So we need to be aware of this. Yes, we need to be aware of this, right? The difference between intention and intent. Uh, um, 1 second, I need to respond to somebody.
Yes, this is what I would say. You need to respond.
Sorry. I'm not available right now. All right, there we go. All right, let's do screen share and let's go to reading. So this whole point about appropriateness means that we need to have the ability to discern the environment. Yes. And when I'm talking about environment, this includes people. Yes? To discern the environment that you are dealing with, the situation. To discern the situation or the circumstance means we need to be able to understand the greater flow of everything, not just the intent of the individual, but also the intent of the universe. Yes? Beena, does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's say the intent of the universe is for me to deal with fear of physical violence. I have an unreasonable obsession, phobia, fear. I'm really super stressed about this. Yes. So the universe puts me into confrontations of physical confrontations where I'm being physically threatened. Yes. Now, the intent of the universe is for me to learn to deal with this. See, that's a very different intent than where you're just getting into trouble because you weren't paying attention, and the universe is saying, well, if you'd been aware and you could, you were applying anticipation, you could have seen this trouble before it caught up with you. Now you're in trouble because you weren't paying attention. Powerful lesson, right? Different lessons. So in other words, the appropriateness of our behavior is going to be different relative to the intent of the universe, the lesson you need to learn. Yes. See, so it's not only the intent of others, but the intent of the situation itself. This is a very, very subtle point, and it's a big, big, big deal. Now, we're going to see this in the story with Heila and later with Boynel, especially the intent of the situation. It's not specifically mentioned, but it's very powerful how it affects the way things go. Yes. And this is a big deal to pay attention to the intent of the circumstance. Yeah. Now, force of circumstance, for instance, that has its own intent. Attunement, the intent is always awareness, but what specifically you need to know. So this is very powerful stuff to be aware of, right? And we can apply it on a very personal, specific scale to just our interactions with people. Just ask, what is the intent here? Very powerful question, very specifically, that's precise wording. Because when you ask it that way, you leverage your brain to say, oh, it's the intent of the situation, the intent of the person, my intent, all of it, right? The intent, greater intent. And it's very helpful for determining appropriateness, right, Beena? When you know what all the various intents are. Yes? Your intent, universe intent, situation intent, other person's intent. Yeah? Beena?
Yes.
Are you still there?
Yes, I think.
Okay. Does that make sense? Make sense, Beena?
I was saying that. Can you hear me clearly?
Now I can, yes. I didn't hear when I said before. I didn't hear the confirmation when I said, does that make sense? I'm assuming it makes sense to you, yes?
It does make sense to me. Yeah.
All right. Will you read, please, Beena?
Okay. Biella was confident she'd said enough to prompt Heila to fill in the missing information. Switching back to the larger theme, Biella said, some of the context I'm referring to is synchronicity or its variant, the new nobility have expanded upon, or anomalies, their relation to the universe and ourselves, of how we, the new nobility, use triangulation within our personal interactions with the universe to extend ourselves to facilitate awareness.
All right, let's pause there because we have this powerful concept here, and really it's in the Dictionary of Power. So when I first wrote this, I didn't want to have all the capitalizations because it puts some people off. They don't get it, but too bad. This is how the new nobility do things. You just got to get used to it, right? So triangulation means, with a capital T, means it's in the Dictionary of Power, right? And what is this point here? What is this concept of triangulation? What do I mean here with it? What does the story mean? What does Biella mean here with it? So let's say we understand what triangulation is. Yeah? So if I'm looking for buried treasure and I'm standing here, and you say to me, well, the buried treasure is north from here. And I say, well, thank you very much. And I start digging, right? And I just dig. And, 60 years later, I'm still digging, and, I've dug 1,000 miles of trench. And I say, well, where's this treasure? Well, it was north of there. You haven't got to the north yet, right? So eventually you'll dig all the way around the world, and then you'll find it, right? So, but that's a very long way of doing it, right? Very, very time consuming, because you don't know how far along this line it is when you only get given one direction, correct?
Yes.
Yes? So triangulation means I'm standing here and I need another point that is not where I am, right? Somewhere else, right? And well, if you're gonna be looking, if I'm gonna go north, that other point needs to be to my sides, to the side of the direction that I'm going in, right? So either left, it doesn't matter, left or right, underneath, on top, doesn't matter, right? But at least in that more or less direction. From that point, right? So the person says, okay, it's north from you, and let's say they're standing over here, and they say it is west of me. Now I've got a triangle. Yes?
Yeah.
You with me? They're standing over here, and they say, they first said it's north of you, so I'm looking north. Okay, that's my one line. Then from here, from this point over here, they say west of me. Makes another line. Where those lines intersect is the third point, and that makes the triangle. And that's called triangulation, right? It allows me to specifically identify where that treasure is. I now know precisely. It's north of me, west of them, on that spot, bing, that's it. Very easy, okay? And this is how, like, for instance, in the Second World War, when you had the spies, right? And you out there in occupied France, and you reporting on the movements of the enemy troop movements of the Nazis, and you got to radio this back to England, and they're getting. So when they drive around in those trucks with a signal, and they pick up a signal, right? They can say where the direction is from. But if it's only one direction, they don't know. Well, it's north of here. They don't know how far. But so they will use another truck, all right, two, and then they get triangulation and say, well, it's north of you, west of us, and they cross the two, and they know exactly where you are, right? So that's how they would find the spies, okay? So that's why, when you see in the movies, they always make a very short broadcast so that you can't be triangulated easily, right? It takes a little time. Anyway, so just to understand triangulation. But now Biella takes us further. She says, we, the new nobility, use triangulation within our personal interactions with the universe to extend ourselves to facilitate awareness, right? And in the grand context of all appropriateness. So I take my perspective and I say, okay, I want to learn, I want to extend my awareness, my understanding, but that gives me one line, right? To get to more precision, I take the universe as my triangulation point, and I take the intent of the universe and I cross over with mine. At that point where they cross, I get not necessarily a position, but in this more abstract way, I get a more precise understanding, because my intent on its own is a bit open, right? My intent is to enhance my awareness. The universe's intent is also to enhance awareness in general, right? But how exactly? But when you start to cross those two lines, where does my intent and the circumstance that is produced around me, where does it intersect with the intent of the universe? At that intersection point, we start to get precise and more clear and obvious answers, right? I still have to think it out. I still have to figure it out. But that intersection point is usually going to be the anomaly. Yeah? Does that make sense, Beena? I never actually spoke of this before. So it's something kind of new, this triangulation, right? Make sense, Beena?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to emphasize on that, because this point of triangulation is a big deal. And I'm trying to wonder if I have I feel like there's more to it than I'm explaining right now. But instead of working it out from scratch, I want to I want to check something real quick. One moment. One moment. I thought I wrote a specific post or point about this that may give us a little bit more depth on it. Because it's a very powerful concept, yes, Beena?
Yes.
And since we were talking about no, I don't have. Oh yeah, the immense value of triangulation for creativity. Yeah. I thought I'd written this. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to get into this. But I love this concept of triangulation because it's so simple. But when you think of it in the context of finding buried treasure, man, it's like huge. Because otherwise, I was going to be digging this trench forever. And maybe I get lucky and the thing is only 10 meters away from me. Or I never find it because I can't dig, my life is not long enough to dig, see? Or by the time I find it, well, it's worthless because I don't have time to enjoy it, right? So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a very simple strategy for getting great value, right? But you need to be aware of it, though. Triangulation is where someone can get a bearing on a signal, but can only get the direction, right? So if we were to find it on our own, we would have to travel all along all of the path the signal is on. If we were looking for buried treasure, say, this would be a hassle. We would have to dig everything up until we got to the treasure, like I was saying. However, someone else that also has a signal perceiving device simply needs to stand a bit away from us, and this is the key, they have to be at another place. All they have to do is point to the signal. Then, when the two lines cross, this is where the treasure or object is. Very simple, but huge. Okay, so I'm explaining the regular understanding of triangulation. How does this apply to interpersonal interactions? The treasure is a point or a belief, a perspective or a conceptualization. The reason that I wanted more of this is because this is talking about collaboration. 1 + 1 is equal more, right? And you see how 1 + 1, when we triangulate, gives us more, yes? Because my one on its own means nothing. The other person's one on its own means nothing. We can't get to the treasure easily. But when we put the two together, we get that treasure. When that treasure is a point, a deeper point of understanding, or a belief, or a perspective, right? Or a conceptualization, this is huge. On one's own, the point will eventually be arrived at. But with the help of another perspective, it can easily be honed in on. And the beauty of it is that only one party has to do the work and effort. The other party simply has to point in the direction of the focus. That's all. They may not think their contribution is much, but to the treasure hunter, it's invaluable. So I'm doing the digging, yes? All that you have to do is point in the direction that your signal device says the treasure's in that direction. That's all you have to do. I'm doing all the work, all the digging. But now I know where to go and dig. See? Your contribution is massively invaluable. It saves me tons of digging. But you don't need to be doing the digging. I'm happy to do the digging. All I want from you is that direction, that point. So this is what the new nobility understand. And it's why the older new nobles continually are interacting with the aspirants. It doesn't matter who, right? It doesn't matter your digging ability, right? It's irrelevant. In me finding it, all I need is that triangulation to get the precise point. Yeah? So it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal, right? It's all about leveraging motivation as well. The triangulation, right? It's all about leveraging motivation as well. That's the triangulation. Helping, cooperating, and sharing are much more motivating than doing something by oneself. Having a focus is huge, especially if it's a focus one cares about. It automatically brings to the front a whole host of attitudes and motivations which are hard to access otherwise. Right? So when I'm looking at something and I'm trying to figure out a point, your intent, your earnestness to also know this, that adds something to me, and it gives me that extra motivation. And the triangulation of where the motivations intersect, leverage through that earnestness and pull stuff from me. Right? There's a magic that happens. So this point of triangulation in an abstract concept is, again, 1 + 1. The third point is more. Not 2, it's more. So triangulation in personal interactions, it's what we do every single day, Beena. And that's why sometimes when I ask you, does that make sense? You just saying, yes, it makes sense to you. That is a huge deal. Not because I want to be right or anything, but because the triangulation moreness means that I've successfully communicated the concept. See? And that's huge, because now I'm getting feedback on the skill that I'm practicing, which is the skill of communication. Yeah. But without your triangulation point of saying, yes, it makes sense, I don't know. And I'm wasting my time in my practice. See, it's kind of useless. So it's a very, very simple point. And when we start to look at these interactions now and our own interactions from this understanding of triangulation and how we can use it not only with another, but with the universe as well. Oh man, it's like, wow, wow, wow. This is really cool stuff. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool stuff. I mean, it's a very simple article there. It maybe could use some more writing. It's not finished yet, but at least it got some of the point across, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Biella says of how we, the new nobility, use triangulation. So some of the context I'm referring to is synchronicity, or its variant, the new nobility have expanded on, of anomalies, their relation to the universe and ourselves. So it's anomalies that she's talking about here, right? And in this context of triangulation with the universe, that intersection point where the treasure is, this is the anomaly. The anomaly is the X. The anomaly is not the treasure itself. It is the X on the map. So an anomaly says, here be treasure, right? Isn't that what the X on the treasure map says? Here be treasure, like here be dragons, right? Here be treasure, right? Or here be, to be more exact, the treasure is awareness. And in the context of awareness, if it is actually a dragon there, well, and now you know there's a dragon there, well, then you stay away, right? See, awareness is always treasure. Huh?
Yes.
Isn't that cool, Beena? Isn't that cool?
Yes.
All right, please continue. Please continue, Angel.
Heila stopped, taking into consideration the huge entirety of what it meant to be a new noble. She felt in the case of Heila, the reiteration of this point was not appropriate. Biella was laying out concepts and perspectives as potential paths for Heila. Heila. I'm still struggling to pronounce that
Hey,
you.
like just say hey, like you're saying Hey. Hey. And then you just
Heila.
say la. Hey la.
To perhaps use as a means to get her story. Heila still had her story to tell. She began again. I'm definitely not averse to going deeper. This is something that held my interest for a long time. Synchronicity. And the feeling I'm somehow a character in a story, my story. That time is not linear, but rather folds and twists up into itself. So
Onto
maybe
itself. Yeah.
that's onto itself. So maybe the synchronicities we experience, the pieces of the puzzle we pick up along the way, seem familiar to our soul. In a way, our thinking minds can't quite grasp. Like
Yeah.
we are moving, rather than learning anew.
Yes, yes.
There's an overwhelming sense of rightness when I'm doing something the way I should be doing it, and the sense of feeling I'm forcing things when I'm deviating from the path.
Right. So this paragraph holds a lot. Yeah. Sorry, Beena, to elaborate on this. Right. So there's a lot going on here. Right. So this point that she says time is not linear, but rather folds and twists upon itself. To be more precise, there, if we get into the physics of time, time exists in one instant only. You can go and read it up in physics and they'll give you all the proofs and all that, right? But at the end of the day, that everything is only now. The past, the future, the present, all possibilities occur in the now. We've taken that now. It's also why I have my background behind me, right? That this is time is three-dimensional, but all in the now. But in order to make sense of it, like if this was all the things that are happening, past, future, present, they're all connected, right? But they're all happening simultaneously. It's very hard to comprehend this from a time perception point of view. So what do? We take that and we flatten it out. We make it linear. Yeah? It is only a way of dealing with the complexity of time until we have sufficient awareness and ability to deal with three-dimensional time. In other words, past, present, and future all happening simultaneously. That's a very difficult thing to deal with, but it can be. So when we make time linear, though, and we come across a synchronicity or an anomaly, which is really something from the future or the past existing in the now, we're like, oh, it's a way for us to deal with this three-dimensional time on a linear scale, right? That's why we recognize it. And this point, she says, like we're remembering rather than learning anew. Remembering implies it happened in the past. It's not remembering, but recognizing. Yes? So she's almost got it, but not quite. We recognize what's happening simultaneously, past, present, future, all happening simultaneously. But we stretch it out linearly. So when something that we now, this idea artificially created that we're in the now, and we're seeing something from the future or the past in the now, really what we do is recognizing the simultaneity of time. Okay? It's very powerful stuff. Very, very, very powerful stuff. And there's that overwhelming sense of rightness, says Heila, when I'm doing something the way I should be doing it. And this is now she's jumping to the point of appropriateness and the deep inner sense that you need to follow your heart, your capital H heart, your own inner rightness. This is what impeccability is. Impeccability is not about being right all the time. Some people think, oh, I can't be impeccable. Nobody can be impeccable. You can't be right all the time. It's nothing to do with being right all the time. It's about doing what is right according to your own conscience and being thorough and diligent and scrupulous and conscientious, that's where the word conscientious comes from, about having thoroughly investigated and researched and thought through and perspective shifted on what you feel is right according to your conscience, right? So that you've been impeccable with your conscience, and therefore acting according to what is right according to your conscience is something that you can do without doubts, and it will never lead to any regrets. Yes, this is very, very, very powerful. And here's the problem for Heila. She's recognizing all of this, but she's missing this one key element of application. Yes, she says that there's an overwhelming sense of rightness when I'm doing something the way I should be doing it, and the sense of feeling I'm forcing things when I'm deviating from the path. Yes, application, that you are talking about doing, but understand that you need to be applying and doing according to your conscience, not according to should and supposed to, right? She's almost there. She's almost there, but not quite clearly yet. Yes. See that? You see that, right, Beena?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, very
Okay.
powerful, very powerful.
Yes.
And this is why clarity of intent is so important. See,
Yes.
she's not quite getting it exactly clear because she doesn't have clear intent. Once you got clear intent, then the stuff all starts to become pertinent and relevant, and it falls into place. And you, oh, duh, oh, duh, oh, duh. Okay? Very important, very important, very important. All right, please keep going.
No, please, Syl, will you please read this one because I'm eating and I'm listening.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, I love that. Okay. Heila peered into the distance. For me, this manifests in something as small as the route I take to work, or whether or not I run this or that errand before or after work, and such. I'm continually amazed at how, if I listen to this tiny intuition, how good things seem to come out of it, and how I feel on some very deep level the appropriateness of it, even if nothing overt seems to come of it one way or another. The question is, Heila, why on earth you don't apply this in all your behavior? And the answer is conventional thinking. Should, supposed to. She is too bound still to this. She doesn't have enough strength of character and an environment that supports this acting according to your way that you think is right. She's not able to basically say, I'm going to pursue my path even if the whole world says it's wrong. The very important point, very important ability to be able to stand alone. Yes, because sometimes this is required of us, like in this case, right? So she gets stuck on this point here, and she can't do, even though she sees the value and sees it doesn't work when she doesn't do it, yet she's going between the two. She hasn't shifted to doing it completely. Yes. Isn't that fascinating? It's absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. But we need to be aware of this and learn from Heila here so we don't get stuck in the same thing. My heart feels soothed. Just listening to my intuition was a step in the right direction. Whether what transpired was particularly meaningful or not, I've also noticed the more I live the way, the stronger my intuition becomes. Yet you do not do it fully. Why? Habits, habits of assumption, habits of perception, habits of awareness, right? Habits of conception that's keeping her locked. Ursula jumps in here. Where's Norma? I think Norma's listening, but I think Norma responded to me on Messenger rather than in comments. Anyway, we miss you in comments, Norma. We miss you in comments. And I just want to say hello, Norma. I'm assuming you are listening, but not connecting in comments. Just hello, Norma. Hello. All right, so Ursula comes in. Norma's very fond of Ursula. So I hope you're listening. Ursula brings in a very powerful comment here. Ursula, the bliss of being, Ursula said. Biella's earlier statement had resonated deeply with her. Now again, here it was, repeated in another form, from a different perspective. This is the way of the universe. If we are paying attention and we are earnest in our desire to learn and grow and be more aware and get to moreness, if we are earnest and if we are persisting, we hear something, it's like, wow, that was really huge, but I need more on it. Right? The universe will bring it back to you by way of iteration, repetition for the purpose of capital P, practice for the purposes of absorbing it, implementing it. We see this, don't we, Beena? Time and time again. We discuss a topic and then the situation, circumstance presents the ability to apply the topic. When with the participants, right? We don't have that many right now, but remember, Beena, how the topic of the session, and then the next time it comes back and the person said, well, what were you up to? I'd always ask them, how was your week? What's been going on? What you've been doing, what you've been up to. Every single time, whatever was blowing their mind in the previous session, because that's how Way-of-Impeccability is. That's what happens in a session. Typically, your mind gets blown, right? It's new stuff, powerful stuff. It's like, whoa, holy moly, wow. But every single time on the next session, when I would ask them, like what's been going on, what's been happening, they would describe these situations. Oh my God, this happened, and there was this drama and that drama. And sometimes they would see how it gave them the opportunity to practice this new skill, this new awareness, this new understanding that they had acquired. The situation was saying, come, apply it. You're getting the opportunity to use this now every single time. The magic of it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, I would just never fail to fascinate me, the awesomeness of this mechanism. Every single time. The participants didn't always recognize it, but after a while they did. It takes a while to understand. We are so in the habit of thinking we are the agents that determine our lives or others. But we as humans, yeah, okay, to a greater or lesser degree, we feel like we have agency. Yes. With this term agency, you'll see it on the internet a lot. I'm not particularly fond of this term because it's a bit corrupted, but all right, it works here. So agency means I determine, I choose, I'm responsible. Yeah. But a lot of people don't feel like they have agency. Their parents choose, their family choose, their work chooses, life chooses, religion chooses, they don't feel like they really are free to truly follow their own path, right? So they don't feel like they truly have agency. But of course you do. Even though you don't feel like you do, you actually do. However, we don't really understand that our agency is connected to the universe, to circumstance, to life, right? And when we understand that, our agency is triangulated with the universe and its intent for us, right? Or we can substitute universe for our greater selves, our soul. So our soul and us have very different perceptions on what we need. Our soul has a bigger, long-term, more abstract view of things. Yes, it doesn't care about time. Time doesn't really exist to your soul. So your soul's just focused on what's good for you. Well, in the short term, it may not be very nice, but your soul don't care. Okay, so you're going to be suffering for a week or two or a month or a year. So bloody what? In an eternity, what does it matter? Yeah. Think back to when you were a child. How many things you learned that weren't nice at the time, but you thankful you learned them now. Yeah. See, you don't remember the negative, you just remember the learning, right? So your
Yeah.
soul has a very different viewpoint to you. Now, of course, you can learn nicely as well if you are making an effort to learn. Only time we don't learn in nice ways is when we're reluctant to learn, we resist learning, we're bothered with learning. No, but if you're eager to learn, then you learn the nice way. It's fun and you enjoy learning. It's all easy. But this triangulation between you and your soul or your greater self or the universe, the terminology is irrelevant. The triangulation is important to be aware of because it leverages us in a particular way. Yes, very, very important to understand this, right? Uh, and the point I'm making here that that Ursula says the bliss of being, and she's seeing something that came earlier that Biella referenced coming back at her in the situation because it was really powerful to her. So be aware of this mechanism. When we have a profound insight and understanding, and it's very meaningful to us. If we are honest and we really, not just, oh, wow, and we're not just getting caught up in recognition and feeling good that we've recognized its value, and it's an ego thing. Ursula wants to take it in. She wants to use it, make it her own, right? So that she can use it. That's how you make it innate, incorporate it, you make it your own, and you can truly use it. You don't just have this intellectual understanding. You've now built it into your operating system as opposed to just dumped it on the hard drive. Very, very, very big difference. Yes, like if you download an installation file, you download it to your hard drive. It just sits there. Does it change your system? No, it doesn't anything. Your updates, you've got to install the update. Correct? You download the update, doesn't mean anything. That's what people do when they read and they recognize. You're downloading the update, you're putting it on your hard drive. Yeah. You've got to install that recognition. Now, this is the universe will help you with the installation. And this is exactly what's happening for Ursula in this moment now. When she repeats this, she's the bliss of being, Ursula said. Biella's earlier statement had resonated deeply with her. Now again, here it was, repeated in another form from a different perspective. Biella nodded at her, understanding what was taking place. Yes, Ursula, it's the universe providing confirmation or overlap, Biella said. Ursula was beginning to see just what Biella and the new nobility meant by being, by living in tune with the greater flow. To Heila, Ursula said, "What you have just said so beautifully is a rephrasing of a theme Biella had earlier elaborated upon. It connects, provides another perspective for me, a confirmation and an emphasis, a representation of the main underlying philosophy and perspective of the new nobility. A confirmation that you and we all are not only part of your own story, but you also have now become a part of our story. It seems at this point in time, my story and Biella's are closely linked." She checked with Biella for confirmation. "Yes, Ursula," Biella nodded. "Sometimes that's the way of it. These intimate connections are magnificent. They come and they go, and they're always stupendous. Sometimes they blossom from a single joined flower to a garden of linked delight." Very poetic, Biella. And Biella's utilizing, of course, they're in the garden of delight, right? So she's leveraging this to give extra added emphasis, right? Very, very creative, very strategic, very sensible, very moreness, right? An application of moreness there in Biella's beautiful expression. With a glance, Biella indicated the swarming birds and flutterbys in the sky garden. The flutterbys had for a while now been coalescing into long, thick, slowly fluttering ribbons of color and joy. The fluid aerial rivers of flutterbys flowed into and out of the streamers of flowers, which crisscrossed the circular area of the garden. The birds responded, forming incredible multi-species swarms, bigger birds leading great gusts of winged delight into loops and swirls around and up and under the flutterby ribbon. For a few minutes, the birds had abandoned their once only feeding and engaged in what to their audience appeared to be a dance of sheer delight. The three friends watched the magnificent cross-species murmuration, entranced and enthralled. If you don't know this word murmuration, go look it up, okay? And look it up on YouTube, not in the dictionary. This is something that you need to see if you don't know what a murmuration is. Maybe when you see it, you'll say, "Oh, I've seen that before," but then you'll know, right? It's difficult to describe without seeing it, yeah? But this is a particular murmuration because it's a cross-species murmuration, very unusual. In our world, I don't know, I've never seen any cross-species murmurations. I've never seen that, right? And the murmurations are a bit of a mystery, right? That people don't really know, like, where this is coming from. Yeah, they or how it works exactly. They don't know. They don't know. Let me see if I can get this here real quick. Hold on one second. Maybe I can show a murmuration. I like visual representations of things. They are very important. They are very important. Here we go. Right, you familiar with this, right, Beena? Oh, sorry.
Yes. And remember, I invited that whole flock.
Yes. Come on now. I don't know what happened. What's going on here now? Where's my video? There we go. Turn your phone sideways, person. But now imagine this. Not only with multi-species, but also the flutterbys have made these long ribbons, right? And in this garden, there's these creepers and vines that crisscross all around the circular tree branch, right? Up there, high in the sky. So not only are the flutterbys behaving in a very unusual way, making these long streamers and all different species of flutterbys, but the birds are now doing this murmuration in between these streamers of flutterbys and the vines and creepers that crisscross, all growing together, right? And so it's this, not only this intricate dance on its own, but in and through the vines and the flowers and the flutterbies. So it's just like, magic compounded on top of magic, compounded on top of magic. And like I was saying, there's no real explanation of how exactly this works, right? Is there a leader to this, a group of leaders? Is this a telepathic thing that they're all working together? Is it just the happenstance that there's change? And it's like in traffic, right? When you get that sort of slow motion effect and it ripples through, somebody breaks and it's slow. Is it just consequence, right? Just one thing compounding on another. They don't really know. There's no real answers to it. But what an incredibleness to it, yeah. This is really a very unusual murmuration. I've never seen it so. This one of the longer, more complex ones and largest ones. And you think like, wow, that's a lot of starlings. If you kind of spread them out on the ground, that's you know they're not going to all be in the same spot, of course. So they're coming from a very large area to be together, right? Yeah, so what I mean, when you kind of spread them out in their normal density, yeah, that's incredible, is it not?
Yes.
All right. All right. So we get this idea of murmuration. Let's go back to the story, right? The three friends watched the magnificent cross-species murmuration, entranced and enthralled. At some unknown signal, the cohesion disintegrated, the birds resuming their individual flight paths. Biella laughed delightedly, the energy of the miraculous beauty bursting forth from her. Ursula and then Heila joined. The joy of living, the joys of simply being alive, of being, coming forth from them in joyous, scintillating laughter. And this is very powerful thing to understand about Biella. It's difficult to write, but you would see this more, like I said, I'm writing it because I have this visual. But if you imagine Biella, that she has no inhibition for expressing joy. And not only is this a key factor for her, but she takes a deep and profound, a scintillating, thrilling joy at the simple pleasures of life. Right? Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, this is not that simple a pleasure, the joy of it, but nonetheless, it results in the expression of joy. And it's always there for the new nobility, not just Biella, but the new nobility. And this connection to joy is very deep. It's constant, it's always ongoing. Sometimes their joy is expressed via earnestness. You'll see this a lot from me. Yes, I take great joy in earnestness and in sobriety. It's just the bent of my nature. Yes, I also take great joy in enjoying those types of things as well. But different people have different mechanisms. You see this a lot in Biella too. In this case, she's taking the simple childlike joy of just the thrill of being. Yes, but also she loves being sophisticated. She loves being earnest. She loves being sober. She loves communication. She loves triangulation, etc., etc. Right? Very powerful way to understand. And this is why I wrote this philosophy into a story, to show it, to demonstrate. Because to write this and say, oh, like from a philosophical point, this is what I believe is a good thing to be, a way of being, that's how I would write it. From my point of view, this is a good way to be. How typical philosophers write it is, you should be this way. This is the best way to be. Right. It kills it all right there for me. Right? Very powerful stuff. Anyway, so I hope you get the sense. Whoever, I know Biella, you get the full sense of this, but anybody else listening, that you get the sense of the beingness of the new nobility, right? That being is their focus. Being, not acting, not thinking about acting, not being strategically acting in some way. No, being. They want to be directly, so that their being is about a direct, immediate, responsive appropriateness to the circumstance. Yes. And to take it even further, to say I want my appropriate response to always be joyful. But somebody will say, but wait a second. What if you're in a situation where you are seeing like horrible stuff of life? How can you be joyful? Because they've taken their awareness to understanding the biggest picture of it all. In that biggest picture and context, there is, I can't read right now, Norma, because I'm live and I'm screen sharing. So if I read your comment that you're making there, I don't know if it's a private comment or a public comment in Messenger. If it's something that you're happy that I share, then put it into the comment on the live, not in the Messenger comment. Yeah, because I can't read it now in case it's a private comment, and then I'm sharing it with everybody. See? So I have to not look at your comment right now. I'm being disciplined to not look at your comment. Anyway, the key here that I'm saying is that when you connect to the greatest context, and you understand that the entire intent of the universe is enhancing and developing awareness, then everything that happens, every single thing, has some value in that context. When we value this value of enhancing and developing awareness, we get joy out of it. So no matter what happens, when we focus on the learning part of it, the growing part, the awareness part, the enhancing part, the developing part, we'll always get joy. Yes, even if it's not nice, we focus on the good and we get joy from the good. Yes. So therefore we can always get joy because we are selectively choosing to focus on the good and ignore the not nice part. Yes. If it's not nice. Huh? Very powerful way, and the very powerful way of being. Yes. This unexpected spontaneity and marvel energized Heila. Right. So this is a part of the new nobility. They're not just spontaneous, but they have marvel. They marvel, and awe is part of their being because they understand that the universe is marvelous and awesome. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's incredible. Genius, right? They see the big picture. For them, the universe is perfect because it's a perfect school. When you appreciate the universe as perfect as a school for the enhancement and development of awareness, you focus on the perfection of the school, not as a pleasure palace. It's a different perfection, right? But as a school, it's incredibly perfect. It's unbelievable. Just awesome. Anyway, this is Heila now. Anyway, she said, taking a deep breath, preparing herself for the long story. The intuition seems to take three forms. That small voice telling me moment to moment what I ought to be doing. If I listen to it instead of to the nagging voice of any rational mind telling me I ought to be doing something else. Tiny psychic glimpses, like feeling I will run into someone someplace, finding out later I just missed them, and also getting a good sense of people. Right? So again, she's talking about this connectivity to moreness and the time coexisting all in one moment, right? That's it. There's no time really, it doesn't exist, just moment. I think this is my strongest suit, intuition-wise. I have a good ability to read between the lines, so to speak, to see two people's motivations and fears. It's a very interesting way she expresses it there. Not just to see people's motivations, but to see two people's motivations and fears. We're going to see later how this actually means something specific to Heila. To make connections between concepts, even if it feels like a logical leap of faith at the time. The words came fast. Heila on a run now. I'm intrigued by the idea of anomaly versus synchronicity, because they have, indeed, with things which happen that seem extremely special among synchronicities. Incredibly personal things that seem handcrafted just for me, just for that moment in time when I'm experiencing it. Sometimes things happen that I don't understand the meaningfulness of it at the time. But a day or a week or a month later, it becomes clear why this or that happened, like things were being set into place for me in advance, such as burying symbols in a story and the reader has no clue what they mean, or their importance when they read them. They don't think much of them, and then when they appear again later, their significance is understood. Biella nodded in agreement. Now, what this whole expression from Heila. When we look earlier or later again now, when Biella talks about anomalies, she says the same thing, but in a different way. And this is very valuable because it allows for triangulation. I say it one way, you say it another way. We put those two ways together, we get that triangulation point. Yes. This is now when it comes to perspective shifting, when we have multiple triangulation points, this is even better, right, than just two. Yes. Because when we are dealing with a three-dimensional understanding, you need more than just two. You know, triangulation works in 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions, you need more than two, right? So when we are trying to understand something that is a complex thought understanding like behind us here, we need to look at it from multiple points. Yeah. And at some point we are able to extrapolate and construct the entirety from the views that we have. This is the magic of perspective shifting. And here we have the universe helping me out in my story, because this point about anomalies and understanding it and how they work and how intimately personal they are, etc., etc. It's been mentioned by Biella elsewhere, but now we're getting it through Heila's perception, which is closer to, you know, how most people are like, okay, I've heard about it and I more or less get it, and like she's almost there, right? But when you combine this with Biella, it allows for that deeper understanding. And that's what happened to Biella, to Ursula earlier. She got Biella's, she got more, and it helped her to put it all together, right? It's like I keep saying, you know, in this example I use for perspective shifting, we're trying to understand the floor plan of a house by looking at it from the windows. So that floor plan is the same as knowledge, as understanding, as deeperness, connectivity, right? Getting the bigger picture. But we're looking at it from the outside because it's new to us. We're not on the inside of it yet. We're still looking at it from the outside. So when I look through one window, I can't quite figure out the floor plan of the house, right? So I need to look through multiple windows. The key to remember is I do not have to necessarily look through all the windows. Sometimes if it's a really weird floor plan, yes, but in general, no. At some point, I can say, well, it has to be this way, and I can construct and extrapolate and put it together. And this is what happens in our brains all the time. We hear something, we hear another perspective, and then another, and then it's like, it clicks, right? I remember on the playground, standing in a big circle. Some point somebody brought up, and usually a little younger kid would say, you know, I don't understand what they meant by this. It's an earnest understanding, right? And that earnestness now leverages the group, right? And because it was truly earnest, normally you wouldn't have time for the kids and you just ignore them and, get lost, whatever. But the earnestness changes the whole group. And everybody starts to say, well, think of it this way. And then they'll explain it from their understanding. And then the kid's still not getting it. Then next one will go and say, yeah, well, if you come at it from this side, you say, or like maybe think of it this way. And everyone will say, maybe think of it this way. And eventually, like maybe 5, 6, 10 people later, sharings later, they'll, okay, I get it now. It all falls into place, right? So sometimes we only need 1 or 2 extra perspectives. We may perceive it directly. Sometimes we need many. It's a very, very, very powerful mechanism of understanding. And when you don't understand, trust that you will simply by listening to alternative descriptions and perspectives, right? Alternative explanations. Trust that your brain is going to put it all together. Okay? It's how you learned language, by the way. People just said stuff. It didn't make any sense. At some point, it all crystallized, around age 2. It all fell into place, and suddenly you couldn't stop talking. Okay? Trust the brain's ability to triangulate, or I guess would be, tri means 3, but in this case, it would be nth angulate, because nth is always the implication of you don't know how far. It can be 1, 2, 5, 10 zillion, right? The nth to the nth degree, multiple, in other words, right? So, nth angulate is not a good word. We'll have to find a better word. Multigate or multi-angulate. So trust your brain to put it together, in other words, right? Very powerful to trust that. Very, very powerful. This mechanism of multiple perspectives I use in rules of sentience also, right? So you get the rule of sentience, the core one, and then you get the alternates, right? Which is saying the same thing, but just expressed in a different way. Because these alternatives allow you to catch the understanding of this quote, this expression, this core point, right? From different angles. And so I might not get it at first, but when I hear it in these multiple ways, okay, I see what they're saying now. I like okay. So very, very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. Utilized for understanding. Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah, makes sense. Beena, Norma? Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah. 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 It's cool too, is it not? When we understand this concept of triangulation and multi-angulation, right? Multi-angulation, that's the word. Multi-angulation. Yeah. Very powerful, very powerful. Which is perspective shifting, the concept of perspective shifting. It's not just to go from 1 to 2. No, it's as many as is needed, right? Multiple perspectives, as many as needed, till it clicks. This point, this interaction with the universe, is central to the way the new nobility live, Biella said. Many don't fully understand this about the new nobility. It's not just something that is a part of our lives, or something that adds to our lives. Interaction with the universe is their lives. This should be our lives. It's more personal. Yeah. And our is actually more powerful because really Biella's not just saying this only applies to the new nobility. It actually applies to everybody. Yeah. We just don't know it yet. Like Heila, she's not really understanding that interaction with the universe is her life, not a part of her life. For Heila right now, it's a part of her life only. It's something she does here and something she does there. It's not all the time. Right? That's why she's sometimes feeling bad and stressed and bothered and depressed and whatever. Yeah, because it's not all the time. But for the new nobility, it is. But it's better when if Biella says our, it's a bit more diplomatic and a bit more inclusive. Yes, so a little fine tuning here. Everything flows from this connection. Everything flows from this connection. Everything flows from this connection. All direction is taken from this relationship. All direction is taken from this relationship. That everything in the all here. See, that's why I'm emphasizing it now. I mean, I haven't fully edited this part of the story yet, so that's why I'm doing it right now. You see me doing it in real time, right? Because that's what, when I'm writing this, that's what Biella's meaning, and that's how I read it. See, when I read it, I automatically read it with emphasis, even though it's not there, right? This is a crucial understanding. Everything flows from this connection. All direction is taken from this relationship. Our lives are a living link to the universe, to our greater selves, to ourselves. She says it in 3 different ways to make the point, right? Because it's about now just vocabulary, semantics doesn't matter. The greater point is that we cannot be one in order to know ourselves. We have to be at least 2. And in the triangulation of us with ourselves, we get that 3rd greater understanding, which is awareness. That the triangulation point is awareness, but you need 2. Yeah. If you only have 1, you're in your bubble, right? Very important to understand this concept of triangulation. Very spiritual concept. It is key to understanding awareness. Yes. But we need to triangulate with the universe also, because the universe is our greater self. It is a self, right? Connecting all of them. It's not a restricting or binding relationship. That too is misunderstood. The premium is still on our volition, on our responsibility for our own living, for our own learning and growth. Yeah. Now, if you are all about awareness and learning and growing and enhancing, and so is the universe, does it really matter what you do? No, because what you do is choosing to start at whatever point this is. So if I'm on this point and I want to understand all the points, does it matter which direction I go? I'm going to get to all the points eventually, am I not? Right.
Exactly.
So if I'm on that literal point right there, let me stop screen share so I can point to the thing behind me, right? This doesn't have the pointer now. Now it's got the hand. But all right. So the point where my hand is, I'm on that point of understanding. I want to understand all the points. Doesn't matter if I go left, right, back, down. No, eventually I'm going to come to all the points. See? So when we understand this, the universe is not saying, go from this point, go to the next one. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do it wrong, if it's a big mess, it's a big mistake, from the point of awareness and learning, you're going to learn from it anyway. It makes no difference. So that's why there's no wrongness when it comes to awareness. There's only learning. Right? Whatever you do, you're going to learn from. Doesn't matter. So this is where your own volition comes into it. You're free to do whatever you want. You're going to learn regardless. Right? Doesn't matter. Now, of course, some things, the learning is a little bit more stressful to learn from, but in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Right? Very important to understand this, because this point of volition, Biella, is very, very subtly, very, very subtly connecting to the default in our lives, which is all our learning is given to us as direction. We told what to do by our parents. Do this, do this. This is your rules. You have to live by this, right? The rules of sentience, by the way, rules is in inverted commas. It's very not rules, but we like to have rules. And if we have, we think if we have grand rules of life, oh, this is fantastic. Yes, the grand rule of life is don't have rules. Think for yourself. Okay? See, so it's like kind of a rule that's not a rule. But anyway, it's a deeper point of awareness, but it's very cool. But Biella is saying in this point to say that volition is important, because she is saying that we need to go against the norm of society, which is trying to tell you what to do, because it's hierarchical. And in hierarchy, you get power from telling others what to do. So that's the system, right? And when you accept hierarchy, you accept that if I'm lower down, I've got to accept the rules and the instructions and the orders from above. That's the system. That's how it works. But it's not the universal system. Yeah. So this is a very different point to understand. And when it comes to learning, you aren't going to be given the set of beliefs like in religion or, your family that tells you, this is how we do things. This is how it is in this family. This is how it is in this religion. It's all very narrow. It's all very narrow because this trying to control things. Whereas learning is not something that is limited and narrow and rigid. It's open. It's fluid. It goes anywhere, right? From any point here, you can jump and end up on the other side of this whole globe of learning, right? It's like snakes and ladders. They're all connected. And you can go anywhere. And then, I may go from this point to the very opposite and then go, one step to the left over there and end up at the point right next to this one again, or at the same point again. See? So you can jump around all over the shop. Does it matter? No. What matters is that you connect to all the points in time. Yeah? That's the point. Eh? That's the point. All right. The premium is still on our own volition, on our responsibility, capital our responsibility for our own living, for our own learning and growth. And that responsibility is to accept responsibility for your choices, right? At some point, we become aware that we are choosing to continue to live. And at that point, also, when we choose to continue to live, we are also aware that the world can be surprising, it can be cruel, can be mean, it can be topsy-turvy, it can be complicated, it can be all sorts of things. When we're aware of what the world can be, and we make the decision to continue living, then we have to take responsibility for what happens. You chose to continue living knowing stuff could happen. Don't complain now, right? So when we take capital R responsibility, we cease complaining. What a profound way to live. Yes, you'll never hear any new noble complaint, ever. It's not possible. How can you complain when you chose this? When you live in awareness, changes your life. You can't have anxiety, you can't have complaints, all this stuff. Very powerful, yes? Right? Our responsibility for our own learning and growth. However, if we are to progress beyond the confines of our always limited knowledge, we need a window, a doorway to the unknown, to the yet to be known. We need those connections to be in directions relevant to us, beneficial to us. These new connections are not something we can know from the information we have accumulated. For what we are trying to access is knowledge as yet unknown to us. For this we use the anomalies. Now, if we think of this in a traveling, exploring point of view, yes, we cannot use the maps that we have because the maps are of our known world only. Yeah. So how do we get to a map of the unknown? Yeah. For this, we need the anomaly. Anomaly is what connects us to this unknown map that we have no idea even exists, right? So this is very powerful to understand that we cannot just rely on what we know. It's too limited. Yeah. Our map is incomplete, but yet in our minds, that certainty, it says, yeah, but this is the map of the world. We know how the world works. You don't have a map of the world. You have a map of a little bit of the world that you explored. It's an incomplete map. Don't think your map is complete. Yes, it's not. Right? So anomalies will start filling in the map for you to some extent, or at least provide you with information which you can unravel the mystery of anomaly so that you then fill in the map. Very powerful. Right? Anomalies are those openings and glimpses of the path to come. Through the anomalies, we go forward. Through the anomalies, we take shortcuts. Through anomalies, we leap, we bound, we sail, we fly. Anomalies are the true magic of our existence. Biella had said this as an interlude, a necessary interpose, not in a way which invited comment or elaboration, but simply as appropriate context. She returned her attention immediately on finishing back to Heila, allowing her flow to resume as if uninterrupted. This is again Biella's exquisiteness of sophistication. Yeah, that she does this. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Heila continued, appreciating the way Biella had added without detracting. I'm intrigued by the idea of creative triangulation. It's strange how this happened. I have definitely experienced it in my life. It's like I'm pursuing some idea or feeling, something I want to delve into spiritually or creatively, and for whatever reason, I get burned out. Either I get to the end of my knowledge, I get discouraged, or I just plain don't have the mental energy to continue. Yes, because you're digging on that one line going north for the treasure. And you're digging and you're digging and you're digging. Of course, you're going to get worn out and tired. Yeah, it's a lot of energy to get, and you may never get what you want, right? So, of course, you can get discouraged. Triangulation lets you get there right away. Dig appropriately. Don't dig and just, you may find it or you may not. Right? I mean, if you got nothing else, that's what you're forced to do. Right? Very poor way of doing things, right? Uh, where was I? Where was I? Right? I get discouraged, or I just plain don't have the mental energy to continue. Then I will meet someone or have a random conversation that just seems to spark everything up again because of triangulation. Sometimes I'm truly shocked at how these things just appear at the right times. If I'm open to seeing it, even the bad things that happen often seem to have meaning after the fact. Heila has so much of this, she just doesn't have the fullness of the language of conceptuality to put it together all appropriately. And that application is missing as well, right? To be able to put it all together. Heila is still infused by the energy of the sky garden. Let her thoughts flow out in long breaths. So yes, I'm really excited about the possibilities. I've had chronic headaches my whole life, from which in the from which within the past year have turned into chronic migraines. I have noticed it always seems after truly horrific headache breaks, the creativity will flood in. I will have a burst of inspiration. I will be more lucid. I will be more articulate and be able to put thoughts and concepts together. However, recently the headaches had gotten too constant to bear. I finally went to a doctor here and got medicine. And everyday medication. The doctor thought the chronic headaches of my whole life were the same basic process as the migraines, just more or less pronounced, depending on the day. So she figured an everyday medication was the best choice. I didn't have much hope for it to work. I've been living on common headache medication for the past 20 years. But the first night I took the new medication, I was lying in bed, and about an hour later, I felt the clarity in my head. It was like it started in the center and spread out. The same feeling you get when your stuffy nose suddenly clears. I'm 3 days into it. I have no headaches today for the first time I can ever remember. Heila paused, taking a deep breath. I'm telling you this because it seems some of my clarity of thought is coming back now. I don't believe I could have spoken these thoughts to you or really grasped your explanations if I had been having this conversation a year ago, or even a month ago, or 5 days ago. Suddenly, I have rekindled an old friendship, embarked on new ones, and have started mulling the philosophical stuff I enjoy so much. Now, this explains Heila's non-participation as a delegate before, right, where she was in this funk, right, and she wasn't connecting because she was having the headaches, the migraines, right? It wasn't enabling her to connect. Right? The timing is amazing, the way these invitations to open my mind and my social circle have fallen in my lap right when I have finally found some relief from the mental fogginess that's plagued me for years. The appropriateness of the universe assisting you when it comes to awareness enhancing and development. It's an incredible system. It's always there for you. And with it, some of the social anxiety. It's hard to be social when you never know from moment to moment if you'll be able to handle a conversation. Still, she has some of these superiority paradigm motivations, right? Like to be able to handle a conversation. That's your personal image and all of the stuff that you're concerned about, right? You don't care about how you handle it, and you're just gonna learn. Okay, I'm a dancer. It doesn't matter. You don't care about such stuff, so you learn anyway, right? But that's a very limiting way of looking at things. The cynical part of me tells me not to get my hopes up. There's nothing saying I want to be sidelined with a migraine tomorrow and be right back into the mental brick wall I've been butting up against for years. But there's another part of me that says these things are far too perfectly aligned to be mere coincidence. That alone should comfort me and tell me I'm on the right track. Yes, the more you live in attunement, the more you understand the rightness of attunement and how incredibly potent it is and how you can trust it totally. How you can trust it totally. There's nothing else that we can trust totally, but that you can. Heila smiled with a mixture of sadness and hope, laced with joy and excitement. It resulted in a curious expression, which made Ursula and Biella giggle. Heila was confused for a second before realizing. A moment before joining them as she reflected on their marvelous lack of inhibition and completely free mirth. There was nothing at all in their giggling she could possibly take offense or object to. And this point has come up before in the story. It's a big point for me to share this ability of the new nobility to laugh and have fun without the usual hierarchy point of laughter. When most people are laughing, what are they doing? They're establishing hierarchy. Look at laughter around you, right? How much of that laughter is really mocking or denigrating or demeaning, yes, or devaluing somebody? Look at you, stupid, right? We fear being laughed at. Why? Because it's a hierarchy point. But yeah, they are laughing at her expression, but they're not laughing at her. It's a very different logic, right? They're just enjoying it, just looked funny at the time, and that was it. A curious expression just made them giggle. They're just enjoying it. That's it, simple. There's nothing to it except just pure joy and mirth, right? It's pure, childlike. Yeah, not childish, childlike. Heila, smiling broadly, added, I can't tell you how much I need to internalize the idea of the appropriateness of my actions and of the things happening because it feels like a spiritual compass. Very profound, very deep way of saying this. Yes, that's exactly what it is. The concept of capital A appropriateness as a philosophy is precisely a spiritual concept, a spiritual compass. If I feel like I'm fulfilling my storyline cosmically, spiritually, I know that feeling of I should be doing something else will go away. And potentially my creativity will come back. Because how can you argue that you should be doing something else when what you are doing is nothing less than fulfilling your spiritual duty, destiny, whatever that may be? Now, I, as editor, added the inverted commas for should. They weren't there in the original for Heila, but it emphasizes her point a little more. Biella and Ursula nodded without implying any commentary, simply indicating her words were comprehended. They were staying open in case there was more. But Heila was done for now with telling, but not listening. She wanted more. Syl and Biella responds to her intent. Yes, she cannot help herself. That is how she is, how all the new nobilities are. This desire to be appropriate, this leverage of appropriateness on their actions, their behaviors, their moods, right? Especially when it's earnest, it enables this, and it comes automatically, right? Biella responded, "Your sharing and thoughts make me joyful, make me laugh with sheer joy." Biella said this, and indeed laughed with sheer joy. I'm adding the enjoy, and laughed with sheer joy. This is excellent. There's so much. I don't know where to begin. I'm going to go over it all again. I had many thoughts I wish to extrapolate on as I listened to your beautiful telling. I love earnestness. It has a profound effect on me, especially earnest questions. They tap into parts of me I cannot readily access. What results is always more than I would have thought. And this applies to me as well, not just to Biella. Right? As you know, right, Vienna? Right, Vienna, I said, Beena and Norma. You know this, right? When you access me earnestly, you get more than you might think. On our future conversations, I'm simply going to go to the heart of things and not worry too much about supplying the background of supports. If those are needed, we can do so retroactively. If anything is puzzling or contradictory, please ask. I thrive on being asked. It leverages me. Capital L leverage. It leverages me. A fantastic triangulation. This is not because I might have an answer. No, more the opposite. It's the most marvelous mechanism for creating answers through triangulation, right? Biella used the opportunity to set up some fundamentals, as these would be relevant to us as well. I'm reading till we get to the gift of intent story because I want to do that tomorrow, right? So that's how I'm just continuing it to get to this point. Biella used the opportunity to set up some fundamentals, as these would be relevant to Ursula as well. A quick note on conversation mechanics, she began. For me, these conversations and questions I ask are like a message in a bottle conversation. Now, what does she mean here? Right now, think of it that you're on this island, and you're communicating with somebody who's on an island, and you can't get there by boat or swim, and the only way you can communicate is via messages in a bottle, right? So you put your message in a bottle and you throw it in the ocean. Do you know for a fact that your message is going to get to the other person? No, you have no idea. It may or may not. Uh, you hope it does, but you don't know for sure. How long it's going to take, you also don't know. Now, if this is a regular means of conversation or communication, you at least had some experience that, yes, they do get, and the person did respond, right? But how long their response is going to take, also you don't know. But look at the brilliance of this, though. What are the advantages of this as a deliberate mechanism? When I put my message out, I type a message in Messenger there to Norma, right? I treat it as a message in a bottle. I throw it out there. I don't know when Norma's going to get it or even if she's going to get it. Now, of course, with Messenger, I kind of know she's going to get it. But if I treat it as if it's message in a bottle, Norma has the freedom to ignore my message and not respond as if she never got it, right? This is a fantastic freedom. Plus, Norma or Beena or whoever has the freedom to respond whether they choose to or not, right? They can respond or not, either way. And I'm okay with that because I'm not expecting a reply. I'm not expecting a response. If I get it, it's a bonus. Yes? And this gives us freedom, not only in whether or not we are actually going to respond or reply, but in which time frame. Yeah, this gives the other person you're communicating with a great, great freedom. So when I send a message to Norma, Norma can choose to respond to it or not. She can also choose when to respond if she is going to respond. She doesn't have to respond immediately. She can respond tomorrow, next week, next year. It doesn't matter, right? This is really, really powerful. Only in the sense I never expect a reply in any time frame. If I do receive one, it's an inordinate capital G gift. This is the same for anything in my life. No expectations, in other words. having the freedom to reply or not, act or not, do as not, respond as not. This is as one deems appropriate, without pressure or obligation, is an extension of the appropriateness mechanism. I trust that you responding or not responding, or what time you're going to respond in, is going to be according to the appropriateness of your life. Again, Norma, I can't read your comments now because you are making them on Messenger, which is private. And I'm screen sharing. Well, I was screen sharing. Am I still screen sharing? Yeah. So if I open your comment, Beena, anybody watching the video will be able to read your comment. Just pause and they'll be able to read your message that you just sent me. So I can't respond to you now, Norma. If you want me to respond to what you're saying now, put it as a comment on the live, on the open. Put it there. It's without pressure or obligation. This is what we want in our interactions with those we love. No pressure, no obligations, no expectations. This is absolutely key. It's my number one rule for relationships. No expectations, no obligations, as much as possible, right? Sometimes there are obligations we can't avoid, but we want to try and minimize it as much as possible. In our relationship, Beena, do you feel that you have any obligations or expectations on you when it comes to interacting with me?
No. No.
You're free. You're free to stop interacting with me, and if that's your choice, that's your choice.
And you are also.
If it happens, right? Exactly. I am choosing every single day, every single moment. I'm choosing to interact with you. It's completely free. And when I do things freely, because I choose to, because I want to, it enhances their power and potency and joy. We don't like doing things when we feel like we have to, when we expect it to, when we're obliged to. This goes against our grain, and we don't like it. Yeah. So if we want to leverage the joy of our friendship, make it free. Any relationship is this way, right? It's the same with the universe. Your relationship, your interaction with the universe, how you respond, react, connect, reply, whatever, it's free. You have no time pressure. You can do it now, later, it doesn't matter. You don't have to respond. There's no expectations, no obligations. Free, free, free. This is a great gift to have in a relationship. This freedom of timing and freedom of whether to respond or not, right? Like Norma, now you just, because you're messaging me, I'm using you as an example here. When I send a message to you, Norma, I never expect a reply. Never do I expect a reply. If I get one, it's a bonus, but I don't expect it. Never. You're not obliged to respond. And I don't expect that you're going to respond immediately. If I get it, that's great. If not, that's fine. Yeah? So I trust always that you are responding as appropriate. You have the freedom to respond or not. Never mind appropriateness. Just whether you feel like it or not, even doesn't matter, right? Sometimes we don't feel like responding. You don't have to.
Coming
Right?
back
This
to
is yes,
the
Norma. Yes, Norma. That says I love you. Hold your thought. Hold your thought. Norma came on comments, and first comment is I love you. Yes, I love you too, Norma. Beena loves you too, right, Beena?
Yes.
Say it, please.
I said yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was hoping you say yes. I love Norma. Yeah, just say the whole thing, right? Okay. Just signed in. Been for a journey back to beginning of December. Wow, that's brilliant, Norma. That's very cool. All right. Your thought, Norma. Your thought, please, on this point of freedom of communication and no expectation.
I was just saying that okay, it is coming back to the initial or the first conversation or sharing we had about that what we are getting value, how we are getting value from capital R reading, because our value is not dependent on the content, because we choose to get value. Then we can get value out of anything and everything. So
We
this
can
is
extract value from anything.
yes, we can extract value out of anything and from everything, because we are choosing to get the value, to extract the value. It's not dependent on completely, entirely dependent on the content or anything. And it applies to every aspect of our life. When we choose to like something, someone, love someone, or love something, this is our choice, and we take full responsibility of that. That okay, this is I choose to love. This is I choose to like. And when we are interacting, saying that now for myself also, because I'm getting there, not entirely there. I do have expectations, especially because innately I am a very kind of a proper person. So for me, politeness is a big deal. And okay, yes, other gestures also. But of course, I'm not like Syl yet. But I'm on this way where I don't expect things that, okay, oh yes, because I am choosing to love something or someone. This is completely, again, as I say, very selfish business. I like it, it's my responsibility. I love it, this is my responsibility, and I'm happy with that. I don't want other person to, of course, to be changed for that. But yes, I want them and I expect from them that they will at least will remain same as they were in my first interaction with them, as they are, like, okay, when I choose to love them, that person, that aspect of themselves, of them, I actually like, or I love. So I want them to be that. If they're not, of course, it's not, there is no obligation on them to stay and remain same. But then it is my choice. If I will not be comfortable, I will not choose again to love or like them. This is simple as it is for me. That, okay, yes, I like that aspect of them.
Yeah.
I will always respect, but liking and loving is something different.
Yeah, exactly. Liking and loving is different. Yes, they can combine, but they're different. Wow, there's a lot before we get to the gift of intent story. So we may have to skip all of this now. Biella's elaborating again on uh um
Yes, and we are
on
at the
anomalies.
timing.
Yeah,
Yes, 2 hours now.
Yeah. I want to. So we'll just skip all of this on the anomalies here because she's just elaborating what you already said before. And so we'll just skip that, and tomorrow we'll read the gift of intent story because it's a very powerful story, and it it was originally written as a standalone story. Yes, yeah. So then I will just skip right to this here now, and skip over some stuff again because what Biella is sharing is a reiteration, right? Just reiteration. If we just skim through it here real quickly, and we just, all right, so I'm going to do something that's pretty cool as a technique, right? Get back to where we were. I'm just going to pick out keywords, right? Okay. So we were here, marvelous mechanism for creating, to have the freedom to reply or not. It's part of the whole mechanism of the new nobility, the way of the new nobility, this freedom, right? Freedom to do, freedom to respond, maximum freedom, right? And then she's commenting your comment seems familiar. World is a description. She talks about how this idea works of the world being a description, right? Via M is equal to E, and how that works with awareness, consciousness, understanding. This is all what we do. Conceptuality is what creates matter out of energy. The big point that Biella mentions here, right? But it's kind of an extra point that's coming into it, right? And then she brings up this concept of inner aspects and the new nobility have, leveraging our inner aspects, right? And she mentions Mrs. A, but we've got many inner aspects like Mrs. Stubborn, Mr. Thorough, whatever, right? I mean, Mr. Thorough is incredibly helpful to me, yeah, and Mrs. Stubborn too, because I leverage that stubbornness in a positive way. Stubbornness can be negative, or it can be a very powerful quality. When you are being persistent, when you are being diligent, when you persevere, is that not the stubbornness positively applied? Yes, you see. So there's a nuance to these concepts. So Biella, she gets a bit caught up in there and explains a bit more, but that's just how things go. She goes with the flow of it, right? And we have pressures inside ourselves, and we have to understand this. And those pressures can come from the aspects, and that pressure can be relieved virtually, and that pressure can also come from moreness, from the universe. Either way, when we learn to deal with that pressure strategically and appropriately, we can leverage it, capital L leverage, and get moreness out of it. Very, very helpful, right? So she's saying that she's going into this a little bit more because now she starts to explain that this point of the two personas in order to have awareness that I explained earlier, right? The triangulation of awareness, right? And she's just saying it in a different way. And we're all part of the universe, and the universe is part of us. We are trying to become fully conscious of ourselves, right? One connected to appropriateness, appropriateness in the universal context, thinking universal context, and understanding this description of the world, right? She brings up this point of that the universe is a giant mechanism geared to enhancing awareness, specifically ours. Very powerful, powerful understanding. It makes sense of life. And when we make sense of life, like what's the meaning of life? Well, the meaning of life is to enhance awareness, to enhance and develop awareness. That's it. So she answers this key point. So she bringing up in this explanation here, she is repeating stuff that's come earlier also maybe, or going to come later too. She's just bringing key points of awareness into awareness, right? Very key. I mean, in this year, Biella is laying out, right? I mean, I'm skipping over it, but it's a huge point. Awareness is key to appropriateness. In this explanation, this elaboration, this gift, Biella is laying out an entire life philosophy that anybody can use. If you are searching for a way to live, Biella is providing one here, but not a way to live by way of a set of beliefs. These are by way of a set of self-evident sensibilities. Now, some of these self-evident sensibilities need to be unpacked. It's like you're getting cabinet files. That's what a cabinet file is, right? It's a self-unpacking file, right? When you download it, it unpacks itself. You don't have to go to your zip utility and unload it and extract it. And no, it does it automatically. That's what a self-evident sensibility is. All you need to do is give it a bit of energy, right? Download it. That bit of energy of downloading it unpacks itself. Self-evident sensibilities. So you need to think it through a little bit. It's like right? So yeah, what Biella is doing is giving a full, complete a way of living, a life philosophy that is practical and applicable and does not rely on belief, but simply relies on you taking this and applying it, and then it will prove itself. It's an incredibly powerful thing that Biella is doing here. It is a great gift to Heila, because Heila has some of the elements, but here's Biella giving her the entirety of it, right? It's an unbelievable explanation here, right? As this, like I said, as a sharing of a grand life philosophy, that all the elements right here, you're getting it from Biella. Yes, very, very powerful, right? The key to intent is impeccability. Look at these key concepts that she brings in here. Intent is a major component in understanding anomalies, right? Right there, we've got intent, impeccability, anomalies. Yeah, and this is to understanding, capital U, understanding all power conceptions, power, right? Really, really awesome stuff here, right? So, and then she brings in some of these finer points like good is not always nice, right? That's a critical point. And if we are impeccable in our intents, we are cleaned our being to only that which is good and sensible, and we are geared towards joy, love, appreciation, awareness, we will find the anomalies and our wants, desires, and what exactly and precisely we're dealing are all geared towards bringing us to state of grace. Biella is saying, if your intent is pure and you have clarity of intent, what you want is going to always be good. How can you possibly want badness if your intent is pure? You cannot. You cannot possibly want badness, right? So trust your wants. Trust your wants. We are fluid, flexible, and all of this, right? All she's laying out the philosophy of appropriateness here, right? This is such an incredible point. And now it says, Ursula mentioned the young man later, and she just brings us in a little bit, and she comes to this sharing of the story of the gift of intent. And then Ursula jumps in and just emphasizes what Biella is saying, the power of the story and how she enjoys the young man as this. It's a real person, but also it's become involved in the mythology of the new nobility, right? And Biella loves the young man, and she says, "Listen to this. Get Biella to tell a story." She's emphasizing. So she's saying to Heila, "Heila, pay attention. This is not just a regular story. There's a moreness to it. It's much more." And that's what tomorrow we are going to share. Biella cleared the throat that touched that thing, and she's going to read the story. So we'll do that tomorrow. So wonderful, so wonderful. Oh, I'm pleased you came and commented, Norma. And as soon as I'm done here, I'll read your messages to me. Just makes me very happy when you come. The universe, yes, exactly. The universe is us. The universe is all. The universe is so much more. Yes. The universe is capital M moreness, taken all the way. That's beyond our conception of fantastic. It's always more. The universe is moreness. And it's us at the same time. We are moreness, and we're learning. Our process, our task is to uncover that moreness. An incredible journey we are. An incredible journey. Yes? Yes, Beena, you agree?
Yes. Yes.
Is that not what you and I do every day? Uncover the moreness, not just of the universe, but of ourselves. Because, of course, we are not only a part of the universe, but we also are the universe. We're a part of it and we are it all at the same time. But when we uncover our own moreness, we uncover the moreness of the universe. It's a fantastic journey it is, yes?
Yes.
And to hear the moreness of another and to have our own moreness be heard. What an incredible joy. Yes, Beena? I don't, most of my interactions with people until, like with participants, they eventually come to see it, of course. But in most of my interactions in my life, very, very seldom, I could say it was absent in my life. It wasn't even seldom, it just wasn't there. My moreness was not heard. Now, this is not an ego issue. It's just a sadness issue. Because when your moreness is not heard, it's a waste. Yes. And people sometimes they cannot hear it because they're caught up in the superiority paradigm. So they're seeing you through a lens. And when you see somebody through a filter, you're only seeing a particular view of them, a filtered view of them. You're not actually seeing all of them. And I've had this all my life. But in our interaction, you really hear my moreness. And this is very liberating and freeing because I can communicate with all of me, not just parts of me. And I'm not misunderstood. Because if you filter me through the superiority paradigm, through habit, through typical conventional thinking, you're only going to see a distorted view of me, not the actual view. It's very important to see me through this lens of the story, yeah, which you do. See me through the lens of Way-of-Impeccability. See me through the lens of moreness, capital H hearing, nobility, all of the stuff. This is my moreness, yes? And your moreness too, right, Beena? Because you resonate with it also. Doesn't matter that I was the one who happened to write it out. When you hear it, it resonates with your heart and soul. So it's yours also. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very powerful, wonderful, magical thing. Yes, just to reiterate. And it's not confined to only me and Beena. Anybody can join in this. Anybody can join in this moreness. It's not confined to the two of us only. Yes. And how is by setting aside your conventionality, setting aside your typicality, setting aside expectations, assumptions, opening yourself to moreness, to the unknown. Yes. And to understand the intent is the intent to moreness. And it is an intent of goodness, of purity, of love, of appreciation. It is a noble, noble, noble intent. Moreness. Yes. Set aside your assumptions of how people think, of how people are motivated, and you will see the moreness that Beena and I are talking about. This moreness that this whole story is about. Yes. And I was talking to Beena, just I know we're on time, but sometimes we go a little longer because sometimes we go shorter. I was chatting to Beena and we were talking about the book and the book series. And right now it's called the Biella series. But I'm likely going to change it to call it the Moreness series. Because my first book series is called the Realism series. And it's about the psychology of the superiority paradigm and stuff like that. But this whole Biella series, it's about moreness. Yes, it's about moreness, moreness, moreness. Everything in the way connected to moreness. So I'm going to change it from the Biella series to the moreness series. Yeah? And when you start to connect and interact, you can join in this moreness paradigm as opposed to superiority paradigm. We have the moreness paradigm. Very different paradigm. Yeah, right, Beena?
Yes.
Powerful stuff. Powerful, powerful, magical, wonderful, brilliant stuff. All right. On that note, Norma, any closing thoughts? Nothing. All right. Well, if they are, I'll comment. I'll respond to you in comments then. I just so glad that you came on comments. I know you were listening and you were responding to me in Messenger, but it's difficult for me to respond, like I said, because I'm making out what's potentially private, making it public. No, sorry, Norma, no sorry, no sorry at all. Please don't ever say sorry. You don't ever say. You have nothing ever to be sorry about. I know this comes from your beautiful heart, and you're caring. But no, no, don't say sorry again. No, don't say sorry for saying sorry. I just love you, Norma. I just love your beautifulness. You're a beautiful, magical, wonderful person. Very, very, very wonderful person, Norma. Love you. All right. On that wonderful, loving note of appreciation, we'll end it. And tomorrow we'll go into doing the capital R reading of the gift of intent. This is a very powerful story. And it's also got a lot of personal element to it because it is it's a true story of how my life was changed. Yes. And how I changed my life. And the consequence of that is magically profound. And all of this moreness is a consequence of this decision. But also, we need to understand that this gift of intent story is being shared because it is an exemplification, again, a reiteration, again, repetition of everything that Heila needs to hear the story. It's why Biella is telling it, right? He's not telling it for the benefit of the reader. It's for the benefit of Heila. Well, and Ursula too. But it's specifically come about and come being pulled out of her because it is so utterly appropriate in all that she's been sharing and all that Heila shared. So Heila had her story, and then she opened up for listening to more. And in that more between where Heila ended her story and the gift of intent, Biella lays out the philosophy of appropriateness, right? In a very succinct way, in a very cohesive way. It doesn't take very long. It's not like this whole big tomes of a treatise of a. It's very condensed. Of course, there's tons more to it, but the coreness of it, there's more than enough in Biella's sharing. If you are earnest to take what she says and create and put it into practice and apply it, and you'll have a fantastically useful philosophy. Most people have philosophies, but they aren't particularly useful. They're not geared towards usefulness and value. This particular one is. And it leverages your connection, triangulating with the universe to give you incredible value beyond your imagination. So this whole chapter is incredible in the value contained within it. Yes. It's not a very scintillatingly exciting chapter necessarily like the next one coming. It's a very exciting chapter. Like, wow, you're going to remember that chapter and not remember this one. But the value in this one is much, much greater than in the value of the next chapter on Sunday. Yeah, it's all good, Beena. Norma, you can always watch the replay, and respond, and we'll respond to your responses in comments. Yeah, maybe not right away, but we respond to them always. So please don't be sorry. I know it's to miss, but you didn't really miss much. It's all good. All good, all good, all good. All right, much moreness coming. So much moreness, I cannot express it all. Any closing comments, Beena, before we end?
Okay, so thank you so much. Not much because you have already shared a lot today as usual. So just now we are going to just wrap it up, and we'll be here tomorrow again, and then we'll go into the original story.
No, not the origin story, the gift of intent.
Okay, the gift of intent, yes.
Yes.
Right.
The gift of intent is an origin story.
Yes.
Not the origin story, but an origin story, right? It's one of them, right? Like the one about the angels. It's called the origin story because there's a lot of origin in there. But the origin story is also an origin story. So yes, thank you for bringing the origin point up into it. It's an origin story, yeah. And one of the key fables or myths or components that make up the understanding of for the new nobility of how they view and relate to the world, right? I mean, what Biella said there is the philosophy said more directly, but they like this mythological way of expressing it, or fable way, the story way, because our brains are hardwired to understand and connect to story. So when we lay it out like Biella did in the non-story form, it doesn't necessarily stick with us. But now she's going to emphasize and reiterate with the story, right? Our brains are hardwired to hear story and connect to story. It's a very important understanding that's not out there in the world, really, right? I forget the guy's name from Stanford, right? You can look it up. Our Brains on Story, I think, is his lecture series, right? Remember, Beena? But you can just look it up. Stanford Lecture Story, the brain and story, and then it'll come up, right? Very powerful stuff, where they prove this, you know, through experiments and testing and stuff, how the brain is hardwired for story. I mean, I've always known that we connect to story, and everybody knows this, but not that we are hardwired necessarily. That was a very key, very, very cool connectivity. All right, on that wonderful point, we'll be ready for tomorrow's magical story, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And bye-bye, Norma, and we'll chat to you soon, and chat to Beena soon, and everything is magical. All right, bye-bye, everybody. End meeting, end meeting for all. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.